Hi, my name's Emily Kyle, and I'm an attorney here at Kyle and Kupaszewski Law Firm in Scottsdale, Arizona. I work in the area of probate, estate planning, special needs planning, and trust administration. You've got questions, and I've got answers. But remember, everyone's situation is different, and you should always get legal advice from an attorney about your specific situation. So today's question is, what is ALTCS? Some of you may be saying, what the heck is ALTCS? I've never even heard of that before. So ALTCS is the acronym in Arizona for our long-term Medicaid program. So it stands for the Arizona Long-Term Care System. And our Medicaid program is fantastic. So it can cover some limited home care services, assisted living centers, group homes, nursing homes, ventilator care, day programs. The list just goes on and on. It really is a phenomenal program. But remember, it's a welfare program. And so it's created as a partnership between the state of Arizona and the federal government. So they each chip in money so that we can have these fantastic services that currently exist. It's meant to be a net under people who can not otherwise afford long-term care. So think of it. We certainly would not want our elderly population to become homeless because they're no longer able to care for themselves at home and they don't have enough money to pay for that care in a facility or in a community. The eligibility criteria that we're going to talk about very briefly seem extremely straightforward, but they are absolutely not straightforward. Remember that every single rule just about has some sort of an exception, a clarification, a lot of examples to help us understand what it really means. So if you need to go on ALTCS or you know somebody who needs to go on ALTCS, they really should talk to an elder law attorney so that they can make sure that their situation is clarified and that they can get the best advice possible. Now, this is going to be a very short video, and understand that I have taught full day programs just on ALTCS to attorneys. That's how complicated the program can work. That's how complicated the program is. See, it's even complicated for me to say it. So there are three basic criteria. The person has to qualify medically. Basically, that means that they need an institutional level of care or that they can't perform their normal activities of daily living on their own. Things like dressing themselves, bathing, feeding themselves. It doesn't mean that they need some help going grocery shopping. It means that they literally could not live by themselves without help. And you have to get a certain number of points. ALTCS will do their own medical assessment when the application is submitted, or you can ask for a private pass, it's called, which is the medical evaluation, for them to determine if you or a loved one would meet the eligibility criteria. But I don't get to make that decision. The doctor doesn't get to make that decision. Only ALTCS and their medical team will make that decision. The second criteria is that there's an income limit. That is the gross income before taxes, before deductions for medical insurance, dental insurance, eye insurance, and a couple of other things. It's the gross amount, the amount before all of those deductions. So the applicant's gross income needs to be below the income cap, which in 2020 is $2,349 a month. Now, if it's a married couple, we have a different calculation. And if the gross income of the applicant is too high, as I said, there's an exception to every rule, and we would have to create something called a Miller Trust or an income-only trust. That is a trust that is a requirement if the gross income is too high. It isn't an option. If you don't do it and the income is too high, that will just lead to a denial. It also is not used to reduce assets, which we're going to talk about next. That Miller Trust or income-only trust is only to reduce countable income so that the person can qualify for ALTCS benefits. And again, it is not a choice. There are lots of complicating factors in creating income-only trusts or Miller trusts, and I talk about those in a different video. The last criteria is the asset limit. So the applicant cannot have more than $2,000 total at the end of any month in combined assets. So that means if they had a CD worth $1,500 and they had a money market account worth $1,500, they would have $3,000 of countable resources and would not qualify because they would be over $2,000. It's not $2,000 in each account, it's $2,000 cumulative of all assets that are countable. But like I said, there are exceptions to every single rule. So for ALTCS, typically a house, it may be an excluded resource. Again, there are some exclusions, so it has to be outside of a trust. And we do look at the equity value, which can't exceed a certain amount if the person is single. Prepaid burial plans or cremation plans are excluded as long as they're irrevocable, and all the personal effects in the person's house are excluded. So ALTCS is not going to come in and count how many dishes you have or how many chairs at your dining room there are. All of those personal effects are not counted. The cash value of life insurance, the cash value of your annuities, your retirement accounts, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, all of that other stuff that is counted and can max out at that $2,000. If you're a married couple, we have a whole different set of rules, and you definitely would want advice to figure out whether you can meet the criteria, or if you don't meet it now, how you could meet it in the future. The other thing which people talk about a lot is gifting money. If you give away money, whether it's to a religious organization, a charity, a child, a grandchild, paying for education, paying for a wedding, it doesn't matter. All of that is considered a gift or a transfer. And if it was done within 60 months of the date of the application, that's 5 years, it will impact when the person can get ALTCS benefits. So that 5-year look-back period, or I think of it as a disclosure period, doesn't have anything to do with with a 5-year waiting period to get benefits. So think of it as a look-back period, not a look-forward period, okay? So we add up what all of those transfers were, we add them together, and we divide it by a certain number, and that determines how many months you have to wait before the person would be eligible. In Maricopa County in 2020, that divisor is about $7,200 a month. So just for ease of calculation, if you gave away $14,000 within 60 months of the date of the application, you would have to wait 2 months from the date your application was submitted and would be approved before you would be eligible. So if you submitted your application in May and you gave money away in March, you wouldn't be eligible in May, you wouldn't be eligible in June, you'd be eligible in July at some point. However, if you gave away $1 million, then whatever 1 million divided by 7,200 is how long you're going to wait, which might be 10 or 15 years. So how much you give away determines how long you have to wait. If you gave it away more than 5 years ago, we just don't have to tell ALTCS about it. So if you think that's confusing, ALTCS is really confusing, but it's a phenomenal program. And so it's important to understand how the rules would apply to your individual situation so we can see whether we can preserve some of the assets, particularly for a spouse who doesn't need care when their other spouse does, and figure out what we can do to keep that person safe. So I know it's complicated. It's really complicated. If you have other questions or questions unrelated to ALTCS but related to some other area of practice, send me an email and maybe you'll see your question on one of my videos. Thank you so much for listening and have a fantastic day.